ladies and gentlemen. Many of you might have heard Joe Biden had a summit with African leaders, and this was in Washington, D.C., by the way. So he made a pledge to give Africa $55 billion. And he also issued an apology for America's role in slavery. Now, one thing these folks will tell you is how Africans sold other Africans into slavery. And initially, yes, they did. But eventually, y'all went in the land and violently took men, women, and children out of there. And that's the part you leave out because you have an attitude of entitlement. Also, what they also leave out, y'all, when they sit there telling you Africans sold other Africans into slavery, if you look at their European history, during the same time of chattel slavery, they were putting other Europeans on auction blocks and selling them over there in Europe. They act like this is only something that happened among melanated people, but it didn't happen with them. It did. It did. And they know it did. They know the history, but they need you to feel a certain way. That's why that's never revealed. You ever notice how they don't teach European history? Like, what happened before y'all came over here? They make sure they exclude all of that out of history. It was not a good history, even over there, just like their history is not good here in America. When their forefathers were over there in Europe, the history was not good then either. So, they're very exclusive of things they have done historically when it comes down to selling their own people. You could look all of this up. This history, many people have known this history for a long time. I knew it, and I know I'm not the only one within our group that knew this. So let's get into what happened on December 14th. President Joe Biden apologized, but I want you to pay attention to how he apologized to these African leaders. So it was Wednesday, December 14th. He apologized for the unimaginable cruelty of slavery, which he referred to as the nation's original sin. And we know what that is, right? So, speaking at the U.S. Africa Leadership Summit in Washington, D.C., Biden expressed regret for America's original sin, the enslavement of millions of people per Daily Mail. He pledged to invest $55 billion into the continent, insisting that the United States is all in on Africa's future. Our people lie at the heart of the deep and profound connection that forever binds Africa and the United States together, he said. We remember, listen, remember, Africans sold other Africans into slavery. Now, listen to his words. We remember the stolen men and women and children were brought to our shores in chains, subjected to unimaginable cruelty. Let me read that to you again. Our people lie at the heart of the deep and profound connection that forever binds Africa and the United States together, he said. We remember the stolen men and women and children were brought to our shores in chains, subjected to unimaginable cruelty. Now, they always like to have a bout of amnesia when it comes down to real history. When somebody opens their mouth and say Africans sold other Africans into slavery, just know you're talking to a racist. Just know you're talking to a racist. And always say back to them, Europeans sold other Europeans into slavery over in Europe during that same time period. That's what you say back to them. Ladies and gentlemen, these people feel entitled and they feel they got the right to take whatever they want. So when they got over to Africa, they violently kidnapped the men, women, children, and they also stole resources out of the land and brought it back here. See that Africans sold other Africans. That's nothing but a white supremacist talking point. But that white supremacist gets an F when it comes down to history because his folks did the same thing to their own people. So let's get further into other things that happened other than this apology. Okay, so almost all African leaders convened at the nation's capital for the first time since President Barack Obama hosted the summit in 2014. I met with the presidents of, he's talking about the Congo, Gabon, Liberia, Madagascar, Nigeria, and Sierra Leone to discuss their country's upcoming polls in 2023 and challenges and opportunities facing democracies. So during the summit, Biden also met with African leaders facing election in 2023, discussing democratic principles in economics. Well, this is what I got to say about that. If you are from Africa or African leaders, you should never, ever take advice from America when it comes down to democracy and economics because America has not done well in either one of those things. Even in politics, giving you advice about elections, America does not do well in politics either. If you're going to take advice, take it from a nation that got a proven record of success because America don't have that. America rules the entire country based on racism. Racism is steeped in politics, it is steeped in the law, it is steeped in business. These are not the principles that you want to follow for Africa. You really need to come up with your own way of doing things. Doing things that come out of the West, I don't think is good in the long run for Africa. Africa's economic transition depends on good government, which America don't have, healthy populations, which America don't have. I mean, America eats a lot of junk and filler food. They can't give you advice on even health. They can't. And reliable and affordable energy. Now, everybody in America, have you seen your utility bills? Do your utility bills look affordable? Okay, don't follow America's lead. That's all I'm saying. If you want to move forward in a good way for Africa, don't follow the Western way of doing things. They attract new opportunities and they launch new partnerships. And the United States, and this is what Joe Biden was saying, the United States is committed to supporting every aspect of Africa's inclusive growth and creating the best possible environment for sustained commercial engagement between Africa countries and American countries, he added. Well, America's legacy is to go everywhere and dominate. They don't know how to work with you, and quite frankly, are not interested in working with you. They want to be in a position where they tell everybody what to do, how to do it, when to do it. They want to micromanage everything that you do, micromanage everything that you say. These are not the people that you want advice from. And we're telling you this from experience. These are not the people you want advice from, period. It's best for you to find your own way and do things in the best interests of the African people, but don't follow the footprint of the West. All of these countries are now going through all kinds of things in Europe and here. I was looking at an article yesterday and it was talking about the decline of the white population in the UK. And it was talking about how they're relying on immigrants for so many things now because their numbers are so low over there. And we know it's declining here in America, declining in Canada, really wherever these folks are in the world, their population is declining. So, all I have to say to Africa, look at all of these nations that are being ran by them and look at the problems within. Canada has a lot of racism in the UK, a lot of racism in the US, a lot of racism in many of all those European countries over there, racism in Australia, racism in New Zealand, racism in Africa. Do you really want advice from these folks on how to do things? I think it's long overdue for the world to take a step back and look at what you have chosen to prop up. It's not good. It looks okay. It sounds okay, but the actions are not okay. And that's the only thing you should be going by are the actions that you see, not the words, the action. And it's amazing how the African leaders were worthy of an apology for them violently going into their countries and taking men, women, and children out of there. But the descendants of those folks that you were violent to are not worthy of an apology and reparations. You got tons of those descendants that you continue to be violent to right in your backyard. Even some of the Africans were saying, why don't you give that $55 billion to the descendants of those slaves that are right here in your land? I'm just saying. So the African leaders were worthy of an apology, but the descendants of those slaves are not worthy of an apology or reparations. You would have to be a fool to model your country in Africa after any of these nations. But y'all, please tell me what you think about this video. Please leave your comment and subscribe. Don't forget to hit on the notification bell, and I'll see you on the next video. Peace, family.